everybody, Noah here from Midwestern Marx, and welcome to another episode of 1 Minute Marx, the show that explains things the way we understand them through Marxism in exactly 1 minute every single time. If anyone tells you these shows are more than 1 minute or even less than 1 minute, don't listen to them. It's bourgeois propaganda. It's imperialist lies. Anyway, I hope you got a minute, because today we're going to talk about abolition. Now, abolition is a term that means one thing in bourgeois ideology and a whole nother bag of bananas in Marxism. And that can cause a lot of confusion, which is not great, as the word's used a whole bunch of times throughout Marxist texts. And if we don't have a grasp of the fundamentals yet, it's easy to misunderstand what Marx or Lenin or whomever is talking about. Usually, we just assume they mean it in the same sense we learned it in our bourgeois schools, right? Basically, the eradication of a thing. It's removal from existence, right? So, abolishing prisons, a concept you hear quite a lot about, sounds like it means removing the entire idea of locking people up for crimes from existence. Because the ideology we learn, sort of as a default, it has us making what's often referred to in Marxism as a mistake of metaphysics, or that this particular prisons is the only way to handle crime. And if we abolish them, we'd have a bunch of criminals running around doing a bunch of crimes, and this would make life in general pretty chaotic, especially for the working class, since we know just about how much we can depend on the police, don't we? Suffice to say, this isn't the case. Now, oddly enough, a lot of this is based on what really boils down to crappy translations. The German word that Marx used most of the time was Aufhebung, or Aufheben, which means, basically, to preserve the general essence of a thing through its transformation into a higher stage of being. The Germans are good at doing that, having one word that means an entire paragraph in English. Anyway, like a seed turning into a plant, right? That doesn't remove the whole thing from existence, just the seed. Its existence is judged by Marxism according to its motion, its history. And so the entire phenomenon is one thing, changing into a new, higher form, a higher level of development when it becomes a plant. That seed, it was definitively negated, right? Canceled. At the same time, this negation was a moment of creation, the creation of the plant. And we use this same method when we look at society, and everything, really. The way to preserve society is through its revolutionary transformation from the old to the new. Capitalism is abolished and socialism is created. They're both the same process. We call this process sublation, or if you want to sound like you read a lot of fantasy novels, transcendence. Along with this misconception, we tend to mix up when Marxism is speaking in the long and short term. This is another mistake of metaphysics. So, for instance, when Marx said that the theory of communists may be summed up as the abolition of private property, he was not saying the communists got this idea that private property was bad and had to be done away with, but instead, that private property becoming a new form of property on a higher level of development is the process we are trying to understand as Marxists. And that this process, it's the process of society becoming itself, really. The motion of society itself. This happens according to the class struggle, of course. Society in the capitalist epoch is separated by its main contradiction. A class of owners of private property who produce nothing and take everything, and a class of workers who produce everything and own no private property. The TLDR version is this. When you read abolish, think sublate. Understanding sublation is key to understanding everything every Marxist has ever written. And that's about it. I'm going to leave you with a quote about property from Marx today, really because I love the quote. It's from the manifesto. He says, You are horrified that we will do away with private property. But in your existing society, private property is already done away with for 9/10 of the population. Its existence for the few is solely due to its non-existence in the hands of those 9/10. You reproach us, therefore, with intending to do away with a form of property, the necessary condition for whose existence is the non-existence of any property for the immense majority of society. In a word, you reproach us with intending to do away with your property. Precisely so. This is just what we intend.